Must see brilliant games by the one and only Magnus Carlsen.
Oh my god, that was sick!
This is the reaction of the commentators to one of the games. But first, the move of the year 2023, chosen by chess.com. Carlsen against Duda. In this position, bishop g5. Why is it a brilliancy? Because why not just take? Well, then your rook is hanging, so that's not an option. But you can also take with a knight, right? Well, but then there's a check on c8 and the king has to come forward and then your rook is hanging. Oh wow. And then there's one less option to take the bishop with the queen. But then there's also rook c8, and when the king comes forward, you take the queen and then you win the rook. In this position, Carlsen's opponent played the move h6, attacking the knight. I think a lot of us would move the knight back right away, but there is a brilliant move in this position. And it is hard to spot. I will give you some time. Queen takes a7. Brilliant move, because if you take, then the bishop hangs and you have to put the queen in between. And then you win the queen. And at the end of this, you will have a fork, winning also the rook. And your knight will escape sooner or later. But you don't have to take, you can also play rook b8 as Carlsen's opponent did. But then there's another brilliant move. You take the rook, and when you take the queen, then there's still this check. And if you come forward with the king, then the rook is hanging. And if you take the knight, then this knight is also hanging. We already had 2 queen sacrifices, a third will follow. Black played queen f2, trying to have a grip on the second row. But Carlsen has a winning maneuver. Rook c8 check. The king has to come forward. And now there is this brilliant move. Mate and 2 on the board. Do you see it? I told you there will be another queen sacrifice. Queen h6 check. Why is this so brilliant? Well, if you take it, then this is a checkmate. And what if you take with the king? Well, then this is a checkmate as well. This game is played during the World Championship between Carlsen and Caruana. As you can see, Caruana has this nice pawn structure. But Carlsen needs the right move to continue his play. And he finds the right move. g5. What? You can just take it. Yes, of course. So if you take it, and that's what Caruana did, you take it back. But watch out, you cannot take the bishop. Because then you play pawn to f6. And you cannot take it, because then your pawn will roll. And this bishop cannot stop it. So you cannot take the bishop. So after bishop d8, you will play h6. And again, you cannot take the bishop, because then you can take and you will promote. So instead, you take the pawn and you take the pawn back. And this position is so much better than it was before for Carlsen. So he did a great job strategically. In this position, Carlsen has some nice pawns over here. But this pawn also seems to be hanging. But with one move, Carlsen can decide the game right away. Do you see the brilliant move? Bishop a6. Brilliant move. Because if you take it, well, then the pawns start rolling. If you take it, you start going. And if you want to prevent this pawn from promoting, then the other pawn starts rolling. And this gives a check and wins the rook. And what if you don't take? Well, for example, let's take this pawn here. Well, then you take this pawn anyway. And if you take it, then the same thing happens. You know, we will promote here with a check, winning. This is another game between Carlsen and Caruana, and here in the Speed Chess Championship. Here, Caruana played the move f5. Carlsen took right away. Caruana took back, and now Carlsen puts the rook behind the pawn. But what's his plan? Caruana plays rook d3, and now there's a mate in 1. Do you see it? Checkmate. The king cannot escape, and this pawn is pinned with the rook. What happened? Craziness! Here Carlsen played a game during Title Tuesday with 2 brilliancies in one game. Look at this rook, look at this bishop, look at this queen. Perhaps the knight will join forces, the bishop has a really good diagonal, Carlsen has a great position and takes on g6. When you take back, well, then you play bishop to h6 and you cannot take it because then the queen comes in and this is deadly. So instead black went back with the bishop. This is a very smart idea, avoiding the exchange, and you still cover this square. So here Carlsen brings in the knight. It will join the attack at some point. And here black plays a very passive a6. way too late. He doesn't have the right counterplay. And here Carlsen plays the brilliant move bishop to f8. And if you take it with the king, well, then there's a check here. If you put the knight in between, this is a checkmate. The knight is pinned. And if you go here, then the queen comes in at the same square. So that's not an option. Instead, black took the bishop with the rook. But now there's a second brilliancy. Takes the bishop. Brilliant move. When you take, well, then the queen comes in. And after king g8, you bring in more attackers. Rook h1. And this is basically game over. You threaten checkmate here. Black tried to stop that with knight to h5. But this you can simply take. And when you take back, well, then you bring in a knight and you threaten checkmate here. And black cannot prevent it. This was one of the key games of Carlsen against Anand in the World Championship match of 2013. And yeah, Anand basically had to win this game and has a very attacking position. After the move f6, Carlsen plays the move g6, but this queen will come in. So after the move queen to h4, Carlsen retreats his knight to cover this square. But this rook is completely boxed in and it cannot go anywhere. It's basically a sitting duck. Anand brings in his queen, but now Carlsen plays the only move which has some counterplay, and that's the move b2, threatening to promote. But Anand doesn't care, and he plays the move rook to f4, trying to go here and then checkmate here. But that's what Carlsen saw. And here Carlsen promotes to a queen, check. And here Anand makes a decisive mistake and plays the knight in between. Here Anand should have played bishop in between. And after queen d1, trying to cover this square, so if you would play a rook here, you can put in between the queen, and remember you already had one, so this is your second queen, you take it back, and then you are just in time to cover this square with the bishop. But instead, Anand plays the move knight to f1. This is the wrong one. But here, Carlsen plays the brilliant move queen to e1. And if the rook goes here, you just snatch it off. And this is winning. So Anand resigned. A crucial victory for Carlsen in a beautiful way. Such brilliancy.